Hello there, this is Beth, and this is the first part of Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle, and this is your fairy guide. It's one blank card. Can we get, there we go, see, it says fairy guide. Blank card, and I guess the idea is you could fill it in if you want, but since I read for others, I don't. And you don't always work with the same people necessarily for you, everything or your whole life. So I've just chosen to leave it blank. I guess you could go in and fill it in if you wanted to. I have chosen not to. This one is an interesting one to pop up, whether it's you're reading for yourself or for someone else, especially for other people, because other people's guides have ranged from very boisterous and willing to talk to very reticent and no, what we have to say is for our person, not for you, and others are more willing to convey information through me for other people. But when you're working with your own and this pops up, you know it's definitely time to say, hey dudes, what's going on, to your own people. Or if you have not been working with a guide of some form, and you can think of this as a fairy guide, an angel, spirit guide, however you want to think about it, what works for you. I tend to think of fairy guide or spirit guide. It tends to be the two that I go with. But when it comes up, you know, the first thing, if you're not already in contact, the first thing you need to do is get in contact with them. And the best way to do that is just to ask, hey, who are you? What do you have to tell me? Please, you know, you give them, by asking them and starting to talk to them, you give them permission to work with you and to contact you directly. And having, you know, worked with the death card even before I realized I was working with the death card the other year. You know, there's often things that are going, themes in life that do happen in trends that you don't need to know about. It's just going to happen. So you could be working with a guide and not even realize it until you ask, and then you find out. Excuse the water slurping. My throat is very dry today. But first off, just ask. Just make contact. Say, hey, what do you want me to know? And if you feel like you're not getting much of a response, a lot of times it's because you're filtering it out. Because they don't always like say, hey, how you doing? This is what you need to do. They can be a little more subtle and leave you messages. I often tell people, you know, look for that feather as you're walking down the street, a feather in your path, an epiphany doing dishes, things like that. Look to the mundane, not so much the astounding thing that whacks you up the side of the head and says, hey. Although that does happen sometimes, but not necessarily so. So when contacting, don't think big, think small. Not every sign you have is going to be this big, astounding, oh, coming down from heaven. It can be very small. But if you're having problems getting in contact just by asking, you sit down, get in a comfortable position. You know, just kind of let yourself settle for a little while. And don't get, you know, if you're thinking, don't worry about it. People think, I'll think all the way through meditation sometimes. And I've kind of learned to kind of shove it to the side and be very non-attached to that whole blah, blah, blah planning thing in my brain while I'm doing meditation or trying to contact something. Another thing you can do is use crystals. I'm holding a quartz today. And see if that helps you focus or center or just kind of pick up on things. It really, whatever feels right and good for you. If you connect more with the elements, say like fire, water, earth, air, whatever, go someplace that embodies those and see if that helps you connect with your fairy guide. Because this card, out of all of them, is probably the most personal one and the most intimate and the one that you have to divine the meaning for in the reading for yourself or for someone else's guide too, who will not be so close to you. And in some places don't even want to talk to you. But This is your card, and it's your card to decide what this means to you and define that along with figuring out who your guide is. Trying to see if I've covered everything I wanted to. Very personal. Yeah, so when this card pops up, and even if, you know, if you're just starting to work with this deck, it's not a bad idea just to contact with this. And when I first started working with this, when I first bought it, because I bought it early on around 2000 when it first came out, the first time I saw it, I was just like, drool, 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 must have. And so I bought it early on, and I didn't make contact with mine officially. Well, they were around, but through this deck, I didn't make official contact. And I do have a couple guides who really work well with this deck, and so we'll often converse via readings using this. So, you know, that's one thing you can do. That's how my spirit guide reading came up, was through this deck, and me wanting to not have to discern so much through, you know, looking up what dan dan means at 10 o'clock at night after I've shut my computer down and what they're trying to tell me. It can be an easier way, and sometimes not so easy, because I also had things where they made, I'm like, I don't get it, it doesn't make sense. And then 2 weeks later, it made perfect sense. I'm like, okay, drop my preconceived notions, because what I've had perception of something that I didn't even really know about was completely wrong. It's like, this is what I wanted to happen, and that is not how it was. So, you know, there's that part too, where, you know, you can get messages where you don't quite get the understanding of, because you don't have all the information yet. So give it a couple weeks. It may make perfect sense. But definitely, if you're working with Brian Froud's Fairies Oracle, get in touch with that spirit guide and see where it takes you, because it can be a very interesting journey. So that is the first installment, and we will talk about the Singer of the Realms in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe to me, and I will see you on the flip side. Bye-bye.